Welcome, guys, to a brand new show here on Carrot Corner Poker Education. This is Poker Inferno. In episode 1, we have a student that I've just started working with for the first time in a few years. I taught this guy for a few sessions a few years ago, then he took a break from poker. He's back. The premise of the show is that the student has to play poker in front of me in real time. They sit in, they sit out, we analyze the hands they play. There's a load of pressure. They have to explain their thought process as they go. Many students fall apart, crumble entirely, and are unable to even think. They're like a deer in the headlights. Is that going to happen with today's contestant who goes by the name of Goldie? Let's find out. Let me know what you think about this show. I think you're going to love it. Let's play some 5NL, sit in, sit out. Let's see if Goldie can handle Poker Inferno. All right, we are here with contestant Goldie for the first ever episode of Poker Inferno. And this is a series where a student bravely plays poker in real time, sits in, sits out, does a sweat with me, gets feedback. The reason we're doing this series, Goldie, is that I did this with Bennett Badbeat on his channel, and I was so nervous at the start of the session that I completely butchered the first hand and I felt like an idiot. And I'm pretty sure there's a mantra that says, do unto others the painful things that have been done unto thee, or something like that, right? Pretty sure it goes like that. That's the ethics. So we're here today for you to play some Ignition poker. You'll be playing some 5NL anonymous on Ignition, starting off nice and low stakes here. And you're gonna sit in, you're gonna sit out, you're gonna talk to me about the hands you're playing, tell me what you think, and then we're gonna sit out. I'm basically going to go like this, and the editor's gonna make it explode Inferno flames, and then that means that we're gonna sit out. You can't see that, but don't worry, I'll tell you to sit out.
Yeah.
And this will be a lot of fun. So how are you feeling? Are you ready to play Poker Inferno?
I am a little nervous, but happy to be the object of learning
You
for
are
others.
the first contestant to ever come on the show, so no pressure at all. I'm going to insult the contestants before each episode begins, and my insult to you, Goldie, is that the last time you hit the overbet button, it was on the Amiga. That's how tight you are. For anyone who doesn't know what an Amiga was, it was like a really old school computer, like before, even older than like the PlayStation 1. That's how
Wait,
tight you are.
I thought I was a bit of an overbet spew monster. Like I thought I was like overbetting too much.
Oh yeah,
Or was
you
it check
are.
raising?
The insults are not personal. They're just made
Oh.
up. They're random.
So it's not even relevant
It's not
to
even
my
relevant.
game. It's just
No. Let me
alright, fair.
insult you in a more relevant way as your
Yeah, sure.
coach.
Because like I was check raise spewing too much, right?
Yeah, when we first met, I should just context time. When we first met, Goldie was doing things like raising the turn with absolute trash against the fishes, like turn double barrel c-bet and things like that. We've moved a long way away from that though, haven't we?
Yeah. Although the first time we started was years ago. This is like coaching with you round two. There was like a big 5-year
Right.
gap, I think.
Right. So you came to me for coaching a long time ago. We did a few lessons. You took a giant hiatus from poker, then you came back, got Carrot Poker School, and started taking it seriously again.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in. Let's play some
Hell
poker.
yeah.
Let's see how you get on. Talk to me about
Sure.
this hand.
Just feels like a standard C bet spot. Small seems fine. Picking up extra equity, could barrel, could also check. I feel I could go both ways there. I don't mind checking. And he kind of pots it. So I don't know. This is hard. I just
Welcome to Inferno.
yeah. Hand probably would have been better as a check raise on the turn. Nah, I don't know. But good first hand to discuss. I already just feel completely lost and scrambled.
Excellent. That's exactly what we want.
Oh god,
Sit out.
pressure.
Let's analyze the 10-8
Uh,
editor.
oh
Fan the
god.
flames. All right, so this is an interesting spot. So on the flop, I have a sort of theorem that I use for people who are playing against, who are playing soft pools or playing against like recreational opponents or whatever. And it's generally going to be that if your hand is good enough to check raise as a bluff, has enough going for it that you want to do that, then that is fine. If your hand is flimsier than that, like it's kind of rubbish, then you
Mm,
might just want to c bet against the average player because a couple of things are happening in
mm,
theory here. One is that if you check, they're checking back a relatively high frequency and you're going to see the turn a lot and realize equity. And they're also meant to raise you at decent frequency when you go
mm,
small. And in real life, people are going to overstab, which means that checking just becomes worse, as we've talked about in coaching. And
mm.
they're also going to under raise, which means that betting becomes better. So I like always betting your hand on the flop here as a pure C bet, never mixing, never rolling, just betting this hand.
Oh, but doesn't this hand have enough going on, like with it, to make it a check raise then?
I mean, almost, but it's a little bit dicey. I think it's probably okay to check raise here, but it is just like completely flimsy backdoors. So a hand I'd be more inclined to
Mm,
check raise here would be like more of an immediate draw, or like a king jack of diamonds or jack nine of diamonds maybe is like a little bit better. But yeah, I
mm,
think I think c bet is the normal go to play here on the flop
sure.
against a recreational player or someone playing 5NL. Okay,
Okay.
moving on to turn. We
Yes.
are in a pretty difficult situation here, actually, where the problem with checking was kind of
Mm,
illustrated by what happened in the hand. Like, what
yeah,
actually
on the
happened
river.
here, and how did that, or on the turn, like when you faced that bet, like, what kind of spot did that put you in with 10-8?
It just put me on the fence between checking and betting, I guess. The like I know there's an idea of not checking like weak drawers out of position. It might play better as a check because if we miss on the river, like I can't really like bluff anymore, kind of thing.
Right.
Like it's
So
harder
if
to
you check call, you don't really get the chance to bluff the river.
yeah,
But also, it's just
basically.
not clear that check calling, especially against the pot size bet here, is even okay because you don't have the required equity to call. Do you make up for that
Mm,
in terms of implied odds? Possibly, but it's not so clear that it's quite a big gap to be making up here, right? You've only got like assuming that the 10 and the 8 are only good sometimes. There's a couple of outs there. There's 9 diamonds, but you're going to struggle to get up to like 25% here, and we need 33% pot share in order to
mm,
peel. So quite a bit has to come from implied odds, and it might just be a fold after you check and face such a big bet. But in the first instance, yeah, we really want to just be betting ourselves with these hands that are, again, too flimsy to check raise. We don't really want to take check raise here against pot
yeah.
anyway, but they're too flimsy to check raise. They're clearly like decent bets. They're plus EV to bet, and higher EV to bet than to check because of this idea that like you can't really check call or check raise a draw this weak in a
Yeah.
successful way, but you can just bluff outright in a successful way here. So going for third pot, I think would be absolutely fine. Going for a bigger
Okay.
bet would be absolutely fine as well, like B75. I wouldn't use overbets on the queen turn typically, but
Yeah.
either like a big bet or a small block bet here would be okay. And I would definitely
Mm,
bet the turn here always for those reasons.
interesting. So it's okay to fold. It's okay to fold here, like against pot size bet.
Well, I don't
Like
really see how you're getting 33% of this pot back out of position with terrible outs. I don't see how you get enough implied odds here to make up for the, like you said, you don't have any ability to bluff the river out of position.
yeah, yeah.
Raising the turn here is clearly bad against pot. I think it's going to be a pretty strong range now for this sizing.
Mm,
And yeah, we just don't really have the ability to win the pot in any other way. So the only way we can make this call winning is if our implied odds are really good. And I just don't think they are
mm,
out of position on a diamond river here. I would lead the river, by the way, if I did actually get there. If I did call here and hit a diamond, I'd probably just like pot the river or something like that myself.
mm,
Because yeah, it's gonna go check check a bunch. Although I think because villain does have a lot of queen X here, the implied odds are
mm.
decent. I just don't think they're enough. I think you should just be check folding against pot as played here.
But really, I should have just been betting probably.
Yeah, well, you sort of were on the fence about it. You were saying, well, betting's okay, checking's okay, but this is just the type of draw that's got enough going for it that it likes betting, but not enough going for it that it can invest by checking and then doing something. So it's a very
Yeah,
special category of draw that just has to bet.
yeah, definitely. And I couldn't put all that together in the 5 seconds, but yeah,
That's how it goes. Yep.
that's how it goes. And
Okay.
then yeah, just give up on the river.
Yep. All right. Let's sit back in. Let's play some more. Our brand new course, Weapons of War, is an armory of new bet sizes and lines that are both theoretically sound and devastatingly effective against your human opponents. These lines should be a part of your game, but they're probably not. You can get Weapons of War for £100 off for just another week or so from the 14th of November 2024. That course is going to its final price of $299. Don't be a late bird, be an early bird. Get the discount while it's there at carrotcorner.com. Now let's get back to Poker Inferno.
I will be raising small C bets. Yep. Yeah, small is fine. Snaps.
Okay, so talk to me about this then. So Queen Seven of Spades then. So we went for check raise here, which is pretty interesting. You did this like fairly automatically as well. So I'm just wondering, um, what reasons did you have for choosing this to call? Did you consider both? Yeah,
Yeah,
your thoughts.
a couple of thoughts. So like I don't see it as I don't see it as a bad thing to start building the pot in case I do like hit trips on the turn, or like I can like, continue on a flush draw. Even though I know that what raising a middling pair or small pair is like can be like a polarization mistake. Um, I would like I still get a little bit of protection by check raising the flop. I don't know if it's like egregious. Like I thought that on the flop is a special case where uh like it's not as bad to be raising made hands.
Yeah, definitely not egregious by any means. I mean, I'd imagine if someone's betting like all of range here, then you do see the raising response by big blind start to contain way more of these lower pairs and stuff. I think a good heuristic would just be that hands like 7-6, 7-4 suited, 8-7 suited with the backdoor straight draw and without that bigger card that are a bit more vulnerable, are going to
Mm.
be raising more than a hand like this. So that's one way you can just sort of simplify your strategy here in game, is to say, I'll raise the ones with the lower kickers, or maybe ace-7, which is a bit thicker for value, and then like queen-7 I call. But honestly, it's fine, and people are c-betting so much here that you do want to be very aggressive overall, and they're not going to be 3-betting you on the flop enough either. So 3-betting hands like this that do benefit from fold equity and have okay equity when called is fine. I just wondered like what the rationale for it was. I wouldn't be raising second pair in the case of like, king jack 3 so much, but when the second pair is
Mm.
low and people are betting small and betting most of their range, yeah, we can absolutely throw in some of these raises, and they are in part value, but mostly just, yeah, there's a bit of like implied odds building the pot in case we hit something, but for the most
And a
part
little
it's
bit
just
of
a mix of value and denial. Yeah.
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so we've open king 3 suited here in the hijack, been called by button. Okay, what are you thinking?
Check raise or overbet? I'll go for check raise. Interesting. Uh, big bet, but how big? I think 1.5 is fine. I don't want to go too much bigger than that, I don't think.
So we open this in hijack.
Mhm.
Normally, the strategy for playing like against cold calls here from button would be to start with a lot of checking on
Yeah.
low boards. But I don't really care against the recreational player. I think betting with a flush draw is just absolutely fine. I don't have an issue with it. I think check raise is also good here because people are stabbing quite a lot, right? Just in position in general at low stakes, micro stakes, people are going to stab a lot. Going for check raise, especially when you have two good overs or gutter or flush draw here going to be a fine line. So I think I probably slightly prefer check raise, but I really don't mind betting either. And the turn is the Jack of Diamonds. You were sort of unsure whether to overbet here or whether to check raise here. Ultimately, you decided to check raise. Anything else to add to that?
Um, yeah, no, not sure. Like, it's just basically like just trying to like choosing which way I want to build the pot, which could, yeah, just by making a huge bet or going for the check raise. Um, yeah, I'm not sure either way. So
Okay. So the thing to talk about in theory here on the turn is that on these flush turns, if you think about what your value betting range is doing, a lot of that range is going to be an overpair. It's going to be Jack X. You will have some sets and some flushes, some two pair as well. These are turns where your opponent has a bit more of a polarized range than normal because their pocket pair stuff gets a lot worse on this card and their flush draws become the nuts, right? Become like very, very strong. So for that reason, on three flush turns in general, your sizing is going to be a bit smaller than it's going to be on a brick turn. Because if this turn is like a 7, you're going to retain all of that nut advantage. Your overpairs are still really strong. They want to pile loads of money into the middle. On the Jack of Diamonds turn, that's not the case. There's a bit more of a symmetry at the top of ranges, right? The nut advantage is more shared. Both players can have flushes, and because of that symmetry at the top of ranges, the main value bet size and bluff size here is just going to be like a big bet rather than an overbet. So overbetting here is like maybe a little bit of a deviation on a card like this. That doesn't make it bad at 5NL, where people are probably quite sticky and quite happy to call again with a 10. It might be a fine exploit, but it's definitely like not the standard toolkit for this this sort of texture.
And I think the hand plays nicely for a big pot. I think my hand just plays best as a check, essentially. Check and show down. So they're going with that plan, like straightforward turn call. Straight on the river. I imagine their sizing will tell. So just going for as much value as I can.
Okay.
Let's discuss this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that I quite like doing in soft pools, like just making it bigger on the button. As you said, maximizing the button, right? Something that we've talked about in some of the coaching that we've done so far. Understanding which spots are good for us, human versus human in pool. Things like in position 3-bet pots are just a high V node for us. Things like opening the button are just a very high V node for us in these games. And putting more money into the pot on those nodes, I think is absolutely fine. So people might look at this and be like, oh, 3.4 in the button is non-standard and it's bad, but it's not actually bad. This is a spot where if you're not getting 3-bet enough, you do actually want to play bigger pots in a favorable situation. Even with a hand like this, it's not amazing. It's still going to be fine. I like the flop check. I think this is the best play against humans, the best way of taking advantage of random erratic turn leading that they do with under pairs and ace high and hands they shouldn't really be leading. We don't crave the fold equity with this hand like we would with, you know, the low pair on the low board or something like that. So definitely just checking back here against a human's going to be the best play in these games. And calling turn, yep, nothing really much to say about that. That's standard. Then on river, interesting spot. You went with overbet. I can tell that you've definitely got like a when my hand is big, I'm going to go huge for value mentality, which I like. I think that's much, much better than sort of being too much the other way and like hoping that people call you. This is a spot where when villain checks as well, they will actually have some really good hands. Like they will have some two pair. They will have some sets. Like sometimes they will check those hands on the river because they're freaked out that it's 4 straight and they're not planning on folding, but they are just checking it over to you with those hands because they're a bit afraid. And normally I might wonder like, okay, is this overkill, the sizing? Is this the sort of spot where we just like get folds all the time? And honestly, I think it's fine because while you will get way more folds from just random Queen X and stuff like that, you will just get the odd call. And when they have 2 pair plus, I think they'll struggle to fold here, even though you've gotten this sizing. So I think this is fine. And I like the fact that you're trying to just maximize value with your really, really big hands, especially in a micro stakes like splashy pool where people are going to make bad calls left, right, and center on the river. I think it's good.
Yeah, big bet all day.
Okay, talk to me.
Standard small C bet spot, basically. And uh, I don't think it's good enough in a like a theoretical bluffing sense, but depending on how they play turn, will determine whether or not I want to bluff river. I think I can bluff, and I think overbet is the right size. I don't think they're checking back a lot of ace X on the turn, and I could definitely check back check an ace.
This basically is more of an example again of like how we play the flop against unknown, likely recreational, likely weak players in soft pools. We have a bad hand. We can't really continue very effectively by checking. If we check, we think we're facing quite a lot of stabs. If we bet, we don't think we're facing many raises. Therefore, bet just becomes the default play here rather than any, trying to copy a GTO frequency. We just always bet small with our hand, right? So good job. On the turn, yeah, there is a threshold here of like how much equity you need because you're out of position. It's a less favorable spot for range, and we just need to adhere to some sort of threshold.
Yeah, and they filtered a bit now as well, and now I'm still holding all my trash. So
Yeah, I mean that's the case in position as well, but in position you can be a lot more liberal with your aggressing on cards like this. It's just a completely different spot where you need less fold equity. Out of position, you just need a bit more fold equity because everything else is worse for you. So the standards are a bit higher. So checking just random Jack 8 here that blocks backdoors and has pretty poor pair draw here, I think is totally fine. Villain checks back and we head onto the river, which is pretty interesting. So you went for overbet here. The first decision is whether to bluff this node, and I do think that bluffing this node makes a lot of sense. One thing I'll just quickly point out is we probably do win sometimes by checking, even though we shouldn't, right? So they're supposed to be bluffing us with 8-6 here, or 9-8, or 3-4, or 4-6, or something like that, or 6-3 suited, all of the time, on if not on the turn, usually on the turn, but if not on the turn, then certainly by the river. But sometimes they might not. So there is some showdown value for Jack High here. That doesn't mean that you should. Yeah, it's surprising, but well, it shouldn't really be surprising when you remember who you're up against. You're playing 5NL, and they don't understand river blunder theorem from the Carrot Poker School. They don't understand that after calling flop, you have to bluff 6 high by the river. So it shouldn't really be surprising when you think about who these people are, right? Like they're not strong poker players by any means. So the question is then, is bluffing better than checking? Checking is worth something, is bluffing better? And I think your instinct is quite good here that they have a lot of stuff that's king high, better jack high, 5x, 7x, pocket pair. This is going to be quite a lot of their range.
yeah.
They will have an ace sometimes, though, and an ace will basically never fold to any sizing here. So I wonder if the right sizing might just be a little bit smaller. I wonder if we can take the edge off this. Like, if you still want to overbet, you could go 10.3 and ask yourself, are they playing differently when they have a 7 against 14.6 and 10.3? Are they playing differently when they have an ace against 14.6 and 10.3? And I think the answer is no. So keep your overbet closer to pot here when you're bluffing. And when you're value betting, that's the time to really dial it up and take advantage of that lack of elasticity in their ranges here.
So do you advocate like, or I can't remember, like as I know that this is a sometimes big blind bluff, but if I remember correctly, you advocate more just playing a more standard linear um, range.
Yep, so I'll give you feedback on that after the hand. I'll just let you express your thoughts on the hand for now.
Yeah. Snap check flop. I think my hand plays fine as a check. And thin value, maybe ace high. I yeah, I think unlikely, and I'm happy to look this one up. Sit out. Oh, hit
Yeah,
replay.
I like it. Nice hand.
Yeah.
Okay, I made sure I got that in before we saw his hand because I was very confident you were going to win there, but we'll talk about that in just a second. I think that's a really overbluffed spot. Okay, so let's discuss this one.
So the A7 off in the big blind. I know in theory that these offsuit weaker aces can be sometimes three bet as a bluff against button opens. But I can't remember if you said that since people are since people are over defending to three bets, they don't play so well as bluffs then. So in these sorts of games, it's better to just attack the button from the big blind with more of a linear range.
Yeah,
If I
exactly,
remember correctly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, the rake is also really high and it gets you in 3-bet pots where, the rake cap is high. So in a big pot, you just pay a lot of rake. So definitely
Mm,
not a fan of 3-betting a7 at 5 and L ignition. I would say that if you are playing
mm,
against a tough player in a lower rate game, you can roll in 3-bet here sometimes, like it's fine, but definitely avoid this like the plague in a game like this and just call. Yeah.
yeah. So it's okay as a call against button.
Yeah.
Does that count for all the offsuit aces?
I think ace
Like,
deuce ace 3 are going to get folded here. Everything bigger is going to be fine against 2.6.
okay, cool. Just rule of thumb. Uh, Again, like this is a kind of board that could be led in theory, but I'm not sure this sort of game needs that level of strategy.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, maybe a better question for the flop in this situation is like, is leading good? Like, is it good against humans? Well, they see bet so much anyway that,
mm,
the normal function of donk leading, which is to make sure some money goes in for out of position on boards that are massively better for out of position, isn't
mm,
really required because they're just putting that money in. So I think it's always
mm,
good, rather than just talk about whether something is necessary or how complex it is it good against humans exploitatively? Try to set up some rules for yourself in this pool. Like, am I going to donk bet in general in these spots? If so, why? If not, why not? And I really think that because they see bet so much anyway, you just don't need to do that here at all. Just checking and continuing is going to be totally fine.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so we do check, they check back, the turn is a 10. I think you can block here. If you want, you can like build a block bet and just be doing that because they have an underprotected flop checking range, right? They're meant to be checking
Mm,
kings and aces at some frequency, etc. They're probably not. That said, the turn is a 10. They've hit top pair sometimes. The value is relatively thin. So having a B33 here, especially if you think people are really passive and won't be bluffing much, decent way to
mm,
go. But I think checking is also okay. And on the river here, you go for the block bet. And I think actually on river, this is interesting because you described this as thin value, but like, how big do you think your equity actually is here? Like, how much equity do you think you have now you're looking at this in the cold light of day?
yeah, probably a lot more than I thought in the moment because they've checked twice, which is like severely capping. Uh, More and not they're not like a lot of players aren't playing double check with like tricky trappy with a lot of strong hands or anything like that. So my hands equity is probably good enough to like B75. Um,
Yep, I
and
think
not I
so.
don't have I don't have to probe. Yeah, and he might look me up with a good ace high or something, or
Yep.
fives or threes or whatever,
Yeah,
or
definitely. I
four
think I
X.
think I think just keep it simple. The hand's equity is really high here. I'd go for a bigger bet. However, there is merit to the bet that you chose, and it's kind of along the lines of because his range for landing on this river is just so massively skewed to stuff that you beat, if you
Mm,
can cause bluff raising to happen, that's great for you. So against certain player types, and you're not really going to have this read at 5 and L anonymous, you probably want to go ahead and, you know, do this and then just induce and cause them to make loads of mistakes. But I think it's better just to get greedier for value, bet bigger, expect people to
mm,
be more passive than aggressive. As played, though, you probably win like 75% of the time against this raise, which is absolutely wild. We had a conversation earlier
mm,
today in a coaching session where we said the human brain wants to win more than half the time, but you can call, at pot odds like this, even when you lose more than half the time, right? Because you're not just getting 1-to-1 here. You're getting
no,
much better than that. You're getting like 2-to-1. So
almost 3-1.
almost 3-to-1. So it's actually wild that you could be winning 3/4 of the time in a spot where you need like 27% equity. That's
Yeah,
wild. Very
yeah,
good
it's pretty
call.
silly.
Very mandatory call. Yeah.
Yeah,
Overbluff
definitely.
spot because villain has got there with too weak of a range, and when people have landed with too weak of a range and you've done something that might cause them to bluff naturally, they're going to
Mm,
overbluff, right?
yeah. Letting the cold calling the 3-bet is generally going to be very uh mergy, pocket pair heavy. Standard c-bet spot, I guess. Quick call. Interesting. I feel like it's gonna be a weird hand. I'm just gonna size down a little bit because I think that the bulk of their range is worse ace x under pair and then snap check raise. Can I fold? I don't think so. I don't know. I'm just gonna call queens.
Okay.
Ouch. Yeah.
Okay, so cold called 3-bet pot. Very, very quick call on the flop. How would you read into that as you head in onto this turn spot here? Like, what do you make of that? Like, very quick timing in this case?
Leaning just towards like I mean, especially the texture as well. Just like a pair. So either like a weak like a king X, probably weaker, because I would think they would 4-bet ace king a lot. And then just under pairs like jacks, tens, nines. I think a lot of those hands are going to be calling. Like they're they're the kinds of hands too that that I get that cold call 3-bets and then would
Hmm.
snap peel like 1/3 on the flop as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I
Uh,
think Snap Peel is definitely a merging mediocre hand
yeah.
strength shifting line. And I do think they'll cold call Ace King, by the way, to your 3-bet a fair amount. Like, I don't think they're 4-betting it as much as you would think, but it's still a
Mm,
tiny part of range. And when they snap call the flop, Ace King is going to be a little bit discounted. So I
mm,
actually really like your turn reasoning here that they mostly do just have like jacks, tens, something like this, and it is a blood
yeah.
from a stone
Sevens,
spot,
eights.
honestly.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
Yeah.
really hard spot to make a lot of money, but sizing down is the best way to go about that. And because the SPR is what it is, you don't exactly need to go big to stack King Jack or Ace Queen or a stationary nines anyway. So,
Mm,
love the turn sizing here. Really, really good. I think you got a bit deer in the headlights when you got jammed on here. This is very far from a
yeah.
fold, like extremely far away from a fold, because you have a value beater, a merge beater, villain shoving like King Jack here, I'm sure, like Ace Queen sometimes. Like, they're just
Mm,
going to be jamming random merged hands. It's almost impossible for you to lose, actually. Like, you have to
yeah.
run into exactly the one combo of queens here to lose. So, you did a
Oh,
great
and
job of
it
losing
is
this
one
hand.
combo. It's still like I still see this spot and I'm just like, it's the classic because like them flatting the 3-bet pre-flop just makes it seem, that moves the needle to them being more likely to be passive and all that. And then the check raise all in, it's just like so you think they show up with merges here. I feel like they show up with hands like that are virtually the nuts. But then even I still couldn't bring myself to fold because like I know looking at this texture, it's just like they have almost nothing
Folding
in
would
terms
be
of
absurd.
value.
Like, you're beating Ace King still, it's still possible. You're beating Pocket
Yeah.
Aces, it's still possible. And there will be merges. Like, you are playing 5 and L, like against the guy that cold called a 3-bet. It won't be common, but you will see tens do this sometimes. And because tens and jacks are 12 combinations and queens is one, you know, you're going to see it probably more often than queens because it's just there so much more often in the first place. So the cognitive I have chosen to jam frequency when holding queens is a lot higher than when folding tens, but you've got to also think landing range and combinations, right? There's just way more combinations of stuff that's not queens, and we know there's some erratic play going on. So definitely hard disagree with the fact that this is just nutted.
Okay.
It's
Then
also
yeah.
like a desperation thing going on where the fish has already put in a decent amount of their stack. It's only $5. They put the rest in because they're fish and they've put in most of $5 and it's only $5. There's a lot of that as well.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I guess I just I don't know if like I don't know if it will ever not sting a little bit, just like losing a whole stack and all that jazz. Like
Yeah.
maybe one day it won't feel like anything, maybe, but as much like even though like yeah, I know like it, or as you say, like it's just I don't know, it's a standard spot, but it's still just like ugh,
The thing is,
even
what
up.
you do with that sting. So it will sting, but are you going to therefore use hindsight to go back and try to fix it and say, what is the band-aid? What should I have done? How could I have avoided this happening to me? How will I avoid this next time? Which is a disaster, psychologically
What?
speaking, right? If we do that. Or we can
Yeah.
say, all right, I'm just going to feel the pain of that. It's going to hurt for a minute. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to review the hand later, like in the cold light of day. It's so
Mm.
important not to like act on emotions that are to do with the initial pain of losing, regret, self-condemnation, and all of these sorts of things. Because that's the worst habit you can build psychologically as a poker player. Talk to me.
Good board to see, bet. I think it's also a good over bet spot. And I'm just gonna size down because I don't need to. Because of like elasticity and all that jazz. So I don't need to bet 12. I can bet 8, 10. Yep.
Main reason why we would overbet on the turn in these situations where we have a big nut advantage and a really nutty value range is that we're trying to bring extra money into play that's not already in play, right?
Right.
So when you see an opponent stack like this, you've got to start reacting to this because, firstly,
Mm,
what's going to happen here when we overbet is that we'll incur jam a decent amount from the top pair plus region or the pair plus draw region or wherever villain's threshold is for just wanting to quote unquote go with it. We're going to start facing jam, and that's like not the end of the world for ace jack. It just folds, but it's not good either, right? It's not great. So I think if you are going to bluff this spot, a
mm,
smaller bet is just going to be better.
mm,
But I think against the 34.6 big blind stack, the fold equity here from King X, 10X, etc. is not fantastic. I do think against like weaker players though, you'll get called by some straight draws that you're actually beating. I think one
mm,
thing I may do here is just I might just check ace jack ace queen type hands on this node. They're quite decent showdown value, and then bluff like some queen nine jack nine queen jack type hands, 6 7s like 9 7, all this sort of thing. So
mm,
I think I prefer check on turn because you are
mm,
just at that awkward SPR where villain's going to be jamming at some frequency, and
mm.
yeah, I think the hand has a decent amount of showdown value still. But if I am betting turn here, I'm not using overbet at this SPR. There's not really a need to for value, and as a bluff, it's a bit wasteful, and we'll lose more on the jam branch that is happening at some frequency here. So I think,
Interesting.
mhm.
Is there an argument to be made like that they might just like overfold or overreact to an overbet size? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's possible, but again, like at playing 5 and L against a 34 big blind stack, I don't really expect lots of hands to fold that shouldn't fold in theory. Like I don't expect
yeah,
King X to fold. I don't expect two pair to fold.
yeah,
Um, I don't even expect like if anything, I would say that they're going to underfold just when they're down
mm,
to this like desperate stack size and they're playing these stakes. So
yeah,
that is a possibility in some situations, but not against the stack size in this at these stakes. I don't think so.
right, yeah, okay,
Like basically, you want to bluff in these games in spots where people have very weak ranges, like when you bet the river earlier on the ace ace queen whatever it was board blind versus blind, the range was like mostly capped, it was weak. That's a pretty good spot to bluff. And I
mm,
think just generally avoid attacking more filtered ranges later on into hands, like avoid doing things like tripling people in a 3-bet pot at 5 and L after they've called flop and turn and there's 2/3 left on the river. The pool's going to
mm,
get very sticky and committed like at these stakes when they've called a couple of bets. That's not going to
mm.
be true all the way up through the stakes. It's going to change as you start playing higher and things like that. But yeah, this game is a bit of a zoo, to be honest. There's a lot of strange creatures, and a lot of them are stationary and spewy. And yeah, I
Yeah,
prefer check on turn here with Ace Jack for those reasons.
yeah, okay, fair. And I can see how Ace Jack does have that little bit of showdown value as well. So
That's quite a bit, because remember again, they're going to fail to turn hands into bluffs on the river that they need to bluff with. So when they have like Jack 7 here, they're going to check it to you and you're going to check down and win a lot of the time. That's a really
Mm,
cool exploit. Check gets better against this pool. I think it's a bit
mm,
underfolded, so bet's getting a little bit worse. So you've got
mm,
an idea of like in equilibrium, this hand is okay to bet with probably just about, although it is like close to the showdown value threshold. And then in reality, checks just going up a bit in EV and bets maybe going down a bit because they're jamming more at this SBR or they're not folding as much. So yeah, you're just trying to weigh up what's happening to those lines in real life against these humans using the theory as the baseline, right?
standard small C bet. Quick call. Beautiful overbet spot. And very happy to size up. Yeah, just keep it standard. Easy fold. Far out.
Okay, so I agree. Turn is definitely a standard classic overbet sort of spot. In theory, you can use some big bets here, a lot of overbets here as well, and both are fine. Exploitatively, I don't have an issue with it either. It's going to be good. So we go for the overbet. We get called. This kind of jam from villain here just exemplifies like when pots start to get big. Once we've gone through these thresholds of like enough money being invested at 5 in ignition, people are going to get very sticky, very gambly, very attached, and this jam is kind of merged. It's going to be two pair. It's going to be like some nutted stuff, but equally, I wouldn't be shocked if it was like ace queen sometimes and stuff like that. Just sort of a freak out, if you will. With that in mind, what do you think about bluffing this spot in theory if check to on the river? And then secondly, bluffing it in practice in these games and how that goes.
Right. So in theory, it's a good triple barrel spot for me, like for range and all that sort of stuff. Triple Broadway. Like I just basically have many nutted hands, and yeah, and straights and stuff. And then in practice, generally like people over defend. Like once they've called one over bet, they're far more likely to call the second one. So it just kind of becomes worse of it as a bluff, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, great answer. It's exactly what I would have said myself. It's a fantastic spot when gutter gets there in general, high gutter gets there. It's going to
Mm,
strongly favor the aggressor from the turn who's going to have all these combos of king queen that out of position isn't able to call an overbet on the turn with unless it's clubs specifically.
mm,
And needless to say, we've still got our sets and stuff in range from the flop. So all in by us is going to be like such a prevalent line in GTO, going all in for two and a bit times the pot, three times the pot.
mm,
Like in Weapons of War, we talk about this. It's the two river cannons or like the B75 and then the giant all in. And this is a spot where you play a lot of giant all in theory.
mm.
In practice, it's going to go pretty badly for you because you're playing such low stakes against such a splashy pool. So for anyone watching that does play like 10 and L and lower, you are going to find people station you a lot in spots where they've already invested a lot of their stack because they tend to get quite emotional and committed and they're just not strong poker players psychologically yet and or they're recreationals and that's it. You just have way less fold equity. So I'm not at all surprised to see extreme volatility from your opponent here after they've
Mm.
picked the fight instinct and called a turnover bet, right? And it's really good to be aware that you do have to deviate away from bluffing in situations like this, even though it is so good in theory to, you actually have a mandatory bluff here with 4 or 5 when check to in theory, and then winning one at that. It's just not going to be in practice. All right, Goldie, let's begin to draw this to a close then today. How has your experience of Poker Inferno been?
Intense. I feel like I could barely put two thoughts together, and I hope that like it's beneficial to some, at least. And maybe I'll be a bit more calmer next time if there is one.
Yeah,
So
definitely. No, I think you settled in really well. Like at first, you were kind of like a deer in the headlights, and you couldn't
yeah,
speak, and you couldn't think, and you couldn't use your brain. But that's what happened
pretty
to me
much.
when I first did this with Ben. I forgot what pot odds were like right at the start of a session, So
Yeah,
That's what
that's
happens, and
fair.
I think that's why this is going to be good reality TV coaching style kind of show.
Yeah,
All right, man. Thank you so much for
hopefully.
coming on. Wish you all the best in your poker career, and yeah, don't play 5NL for too long. There'll be loads of trolls in the comments hating on you for it. Do try and move up as soon as possible. I know you're just sharpening your teeth right now, and you're getting back into things, and you're making a lot of changes to your game with
Yeah,
coaching and stuff like that. But the sooner you can play a bit higher, obviously the better. Just wanted to throw
yeah,
that out there because I know there'll be like a million comments about don't play 5NL and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's just for learning, it's just for practice. So it's to develop my thinking and thought process. So like,
absolutely.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I can invest more later when
That's it.
my thinking is clear. Yeah,
Investment style approach to poker, invest in tuition, invest in courses, coaching, whatever you want to, and then deposit something in play stakes that matter. Don't try and grind all the way up through the stakes. That's definitely our advice at Carrot Corner. All right, man, all the
yeah.
best. We'll catch up with you in a later show, I'm sure. And yeah, good luck out there.
No, thanks so much.
And thanks for watching, guys. See you back here for episode 2 of Poker Inferno really soon. Bye bye.